When Italy played the All Blacks at the Rugby World Cup last year in France, the scoreline was 96 points to 17. What could Italy do today under a new coach and against England in Rome? Well, in this video, we're going to find out what happened in that game. Hello everyone and welcome to Inside Rugby. My name is Mark. I'm a Kiwi rugby fan living here in beautiful Mexico. In this video, it's the review show and I'm going to be covering the game that was played today between England and Italy in Rome at the Stade Olimpica. Okay, a few things to get out of the way before I get on with this review. The first one is on my poll on my channel. You lot all voted for a 76% win to England in this game. Only 24% of you thought that Italy had a chance. We saw Eddie Jones in the crowd before the start of the game. I'm sure a lot of people were waving out to Eddie Jones. And Ruza, the Italian lock, was playing his 50th cap today for Italy against England. Now, one change for Italy before the game got underway. Pani had come on to play on the wing. He was first of all listed in the reserves, but he came on because Capuzzo was not fit to go ahead and start this game. So Pani was starting on the right wing for Italy. The game got underway and we had a first minute or so with England really in domination of possession, and they looked quite good as they moved the ball from side to side, but the Italian defence was good and was holding them up, and it wasn't long before Italy actually started to get into the game. It was through the 4th and 5th minute of the game that Italy started using the expanses of the field, and they looked quite good when they were moving the ball. They had purpose. Manzana had a couple of really good runs in the first few minutes and started to look like he was going to break the line. England absolutely infringed at one of the breakdowns. It gave Italy a penalty opportunity, and Tommaso Allen, their fullback, Mr. Reliable from fullback for Italy, came up and slotted the first points of the game. So after 5 minutes, Italy went ahead 3-0. So as the clock ticked on and we got up to 10 minutes of the game, I thought Italy were actually starting to look the better team and they had some more structure and purpose in their game, but England were full of errors, and particularly at the breakdown they were coughing up the ball and doing things to get themselves into trouble. Little indiscretions that were just more of a nuisance than anything else, but it was stopping them from getting any kind of flow into the game, and Italy were on point to make them pay for this, and they actually looked really good when they started to move the ball wide. If I was to use one word to explain that first 10 minutes of the game as far as Italy was concerned, I'd say it was composure. They actually looked composed on the field, and that's something that already Gonzalo Quesada has seemingly brought to this team. They seem to know what they're doing and they have purpose going about it. So it was a good opening for them in the first 10 minutes, and it's always important, isn't it, the first 10 or 15 minutes or so, it gets you into the game, and make sure you're not going to lose the game too quickly by giving away certain points. But Italy, by the time the 10-minute mark came up, they were showing some ascendancy in the game. They had the scoreboard in their favour, and that inside centre, Manzana, that I was talking about, he did some really good breaks up through the field and he looked a little bit threatening, but more importantly, Italy were able to get the ball back and make good use of it. First 10 minutes, it was all Italy as far as I was concerned. And then on the 12th minute mark, Italy broke England open and Kabisi went over for a great try right up the middle of the field, and he was about 30 metres out when the move started, ended up scoring over the English goal line, and it was a great try to Italy, and the crowd went absolutely berserk in the Olympic Stadium there in Rome as Italy shot out to a bigger lead. The conversion by Thomas Allen was successful, and after 12 minutes of the game, we saw Italy ahead by 10-0. At this stage, my mind was already racing back to that game against the All Blacks where they lost 96 points to 17. And I've got to say, in the first 15 minutes of this game, this looked like a completely different Italian team. They really did look like they were there to not only just make up the numbers, but actually compete with this English team. And England just weren't able to get a foot into the game in the early beginning. That was because Italy were doing some good things. They were using the ball in a constructive way, and they were making some good choices with ball in hand. But it was around the 15th minute mark that Italy did create an indiscretion at a breakdown. It gave England a penalty opportunity, and that Mr. Reliable George Ford stood up for his first penalty kick of the afternoon and was successful. So after 15 minutes, we had the scoreline back to 10-3 in favour of Italy. Now, just when I thought Italy was organising themselves very well defensively, they just cracked open and let England in for what I thought was a pretty soft try. It was well worked though down the left-hand side. Elliot Daly ended up getting the ball about 15 metres out from the goal line and went in and scored a try in the corner. A good try to England, and a little bit soft there from Italy when I thought their defence was working quite well across the field. So 19 minutes in, a good try to Daly, and that guy that I'd just given some raps to, George Ford, on his accuracy of kicking, he missed the conversion attempt. So the score at that stage was 10 points to 8 in favour of Italy. And then for the next 5 minutes of the game, we saw this counter attacking from both teams, which was pretty much the style of the first half. Anything England threw at Italy, they were able to respond with good defence, and when they had a ball in hand, they made England look fairly ordinary in terms of being able to penetrate their line. And in the 26th minute, they did exactly that, and it was that fullback Thomas Allen who took off down the right hand side, scored a fantastic try for Italy. The crowd went crazy again, and the scoreboard leapt ahead to 15 points to 8 in favour of Italy. Allen was able to get the conversion of his own try, so 17 points to 8 after 27 minutes of the game. And this did look like an Italian team that had been transformed. England, I must say, weren't playing that well. It was obvious they've got a few new players in this team, but some of the ones that were starting to stand out, Freeman, I thought, was having a couple of good runs. He was doing positive things with the ball. Then as we headed towards the 30-minute mark of the first half, England started to get a little bit of roll on. They put several phases together, and when they did that, they looked quite good. They looked as though they could break the Italian line. But Italy's defence was staying strong, and it was only a couple of minutes later at the 32 minute that England got a penalty. It was kickable by George Ford, so he came up and had a penalty kick at goal. A successful kick at goal for George Ford, 17 points to 11 after 33 minutes of the game. And one of the things I noticed, I don't know if anyone out there noticed this during this game, let me know if you did in the comments, but I thought the in-goal areas were so huge in this game. There was a couple of times where the ball was kicked to the in-goal area and it seemed to be at least 15 metres deep. But I haven't even seen that in any other field in the world before. It just seemed so extraordinary, I guess. So we were getting closer to half-time in the 37th minute. Another penalty given away by Italy in a kicking position for England, and George Ford kicked up, or stood up again, and was successful with that penalty. So the score was back to 17 points to 14 in favour of Italy as we headed into half-time. And I've got to say, Italy were good for that lead at half-time. I thought they played very well throughout that first half. They appeared to be a transformed team that could actually take it to supposedly the third best rugby playing nation in the world. England, on the other hand, pretty scrappy. I thought it was pretty creaky and squeaky, and a lot of things that weren't going right. They were making a lot of indiscretions at the breakdown despite having a lot of momentum at different times. But I put some of that down to Italy's defence. I thought it was good, and just their scrambling and ability to be able to get the ball away. The other thing that I thought in that first half was Italy looked good with the ball in hand. They looked like they could make a break. They did on a couple of occasions, scored some good tries, and I was quite excited at half time because I thought this could really go into a tough match for. So looking at some of the players that I thought stood out in that first half, we had Earl for England. I thought he had a good first 40 minutes. He was lively in the breakdown and didn't make any of those mistakes that England were making personally. I thought Freeman was very good, came in a couple of decisive runs in that first half, looked hungry to get the ball, and when he did get the ball, he looked like he was getting through a gap and going for the line. Daly, I thought, also played well in the first half. He was fast as ever, chasing high kicks as well, and I thought Freddie Stewart was pretty good in the first half, took a couple of high balls and kept England from having any danger at the back. On the Italian side, I thought that Menoncello was probably their standout in the first half, although their forwards were doing a good job, and that guy Ruza, who was playing his 50th cap today, had a good work in the line out as well as far as Italy was working. So it was a good performance by Italy to be ahead by 17 points to 14 at half time. But I thought that England were going to start to put a lot more pressure on in the second half, and I thought Italy were probably going to run out of legs in being able to keep up any defence, because when England did put phase after phase of play together in that first half, Italy looked like they could creak at any moment. The only problem for England was they were disrupting their own ball by either dropping it, knocking it on, or just having untidiness. And I thought that was one of the things, if they ironed it out, they could go on and have a successful second half. And I'm sure that would have been the message from Steve Borthwick to the lads at half time. He would have said, look, just keep putting the pressure on. This game's eventually going to come to you. Don't panic, be patient. This is our first game in the Six Nations competition in 2024. Let's build ourselves into it and get ourselves momentum. We're up against a good Italian side today, and they're doing the fundamentals pretty well. So I think that would have been the message that Borthwick sent out to the troops at half time. On the other side, I think Quesada would have been very pleased with the way Italy hung in there in the first half. They went into the halftime change in the lead of this game, and that would have given them a lot of belief and self-confidence. I think Quesada would have asked them to be giving more of their energy in the second half and be more accurate when it came to the defensive play and the defensive patterns. That was going to be something that was always going to worry Italy, I thought, in the second half as they got more tired in this game, and as England started to put different phases of play together. So it was all to play for in the second half, and it was a very interesting situation with the crowd really into it at the Stade de Olimpica in Rome there. And it was England in the first few minutes of the second half taking some dominance into the game. They put several phases together, and they just looked like they were ratcheting up their energy and their purpose a little bit more at the beginning of the second half. And then the worst thing probably for Italy that was going to happen in this game happened in the 46th minute. They gave away a very soft try, and Mitchell went in for a try. He found himself going through a gap, basically untouched, and went over for a try that gave England a real purpose to get back into this game. So before we knew it, with the conversion attempt, England had shot out to a lead by 21 points to 17. 50th minute mark of the game, we started to see England's dominance in the ruck speed starting to show. They were getting better and better, getting in there and getting the ball out really fast. And some of the stats that we saw from the game indicated that it was just 1 or 2 seconds for them to clean the ball out, upwards of 70% of the time. So when you've got an opposition doing that to you, you're not having a lot of time to get your defensive patterns right, and that's what we saw for England at the beginning of that second half. So Italy was starting to look a little bit frail around the edges when it came to that particular ruck speed. So the likes of Earl and Underhill were doing a very good job for England in that area. Ethan Root was another that was doing a good job. So it was really the back three for England that were really making decisive gains through the breakdown situation, and that allowed England to spend a lot of time in the Italian half at the beginning of that second half. And in fact, by the time we got to around 60 minutes into the game, England had spent 83% of the second half time period in the Italian half. So Italy were just struggling to get out of their own territory and start to break down this England team, which they weren't able to do at the beginning of the second half. So as that dominance, that breakdown started to continue for England, then we started to see the points, also the scoreboard, ticking over. And in the 53rd minute, George Ford got an opportunity at another penalty kick at goal, which he was successful, and England went out to 24 points to 17. So at this stage I thought Italy have to be really careful. We've got over 20 minutes left in this game. It could really get away from them if they don't watch out, because they were starting to look a little bit tired. England started to look like they were putting a little bit more dominance on display here. In the 58th minute of the game, a pivotal moment as Italy got an opportunity for a penalty kick, but Thomas Allen unfortunately just pushed it to the right and missed the kick. That would have brought the score back to 24 points to 20, and it would have given Italy a bit of a boost in their self-belief at that stage, but unfortunately missed the kick. 60th minute mark, we saw Mitchell go off for England. Danny Kerr came on. I was interested to see how he was going to go in this game, and Dan Cole came on as well in the forwards for England. It was interesting around this period of time because the stats started to show the work that Italy was having to put in. They tackled 137 times compared to England's 62 by this stage of the game, and I thought in the last 15 minutes or so Italy were going to run out of gas in the tank, and England could easily put on a number of tries. Just after Varney had come on as halfback for Italy, which I thought was a good move on behalf of Quesada. I like Varney's more of an aggressive attacking type of player than Gabizzi, and he started to have an impact really straight away. He put up a couple of really good box kicks which tested England at the back. They were able to defend them well, but I thought Varney was having an impact when he came on. But 2 minutes later, England kept on keeping that scoreboard ticking over, and they got another penalty opportunity, and this time it was George Ford having an opportunity to put England further out into the lead. So with that penalty opportunity, England went out to 27 points to 17, 10-point game at that stage, and I was starting to think it was a little bit too far for Italy unless they scored straight away. Then we saw George Ford go off and Finn Smith came on, which was a great move for the young guy to come on and get his first cap for England, a moment that he'll never forget in the rest of his rugby career. A couple of other changes as well. Cunningham South came on for England. Hadn't seen the guy play before, had a straight on impact, made a couple of really good carries, took off towards the Italian line, nearly scored a try in one of them. And the other replacement, this one was on the Italian side, Izakor had come on. I hadn't seen him play, and he did exactly the same thing. He got a couple of really good carries and took off up the field for Italy with ball in hand. So it was coming into the last 10 minutes of the game, and it seemed to be beyond the reaches of Italy, but a good point for Italian rugby this time. They didn't throw the toys out of the pram. They kept the pressure on, and they tried in this game to come back at England. So around the 70th minute mark, both the benches were emptied, and it got a little bit scrappy, to be honest, as those new players kind of came into a game that they didn't have the pace of, and the game was a bit scrappy in itself. So it wasn't a fantastic test spectacle. That was to come later in the day. But yeah, it was just a little bit disjointed through that phase of the game. And I always thought that this is where England were going to push on with it and probably score another couple of quick tries. They didn't do that. And in the end, it was going to be Italy that had the last laugh in this particular game. We got to the 75th minute of the game without a yellow or a red card. And the players got together and said to themselves, hey boys, we can't let this go to the end of the game. We've got to have a couple of players sent off. So that's exactly what happened. First of all, Elliot Daly lost his brain cells for a minute and decided to try a leg trip on one of the Italian players. He got sent off for doing that. And then a few minutes later, just as bad, Lamaro from the Italian side had a bit of a brain fade as well, and he was given a yellow card. So both teams ended up finishing this game with 14 men on the field. And what was great to see in this game is Italy never gave up until the end. In fact, it was after time added on that we saw Italy do a fantastic play. The ball came back to Ioane, who was on halfway. He skipped through a tackle, a very bad and soft tackle, I should say, of Ethan Root. He took off down the right-hand side, bet a number of different players, and ended up scoring a try from 50 metres out, right in the English defensive line. So a great try from Ioane, and a great opportunity for Italy to come back into this game by scoring the 7 points right at the death. So the final score was 27 points to 24 of this game, and I thought it was a pretty good reflection of what actually happened. I thought Italy were tenacious in defeat. They tried all game, and I think there's a lot there that Gonzalo Quesada can now build on and develop this team, not only for the Six Nations but going forward as they start to build for the next World Cup in Australia in 2027. Yeah, a really good performance by Italy. I'm going to put my critical hat on for 1 minute and just talk about Gabisi at number 10. He's not the guy for that position. I watched him very closely, not only in this game but throughout the World Cup. He doesn't have a good technical accuracy with his kicking, and he's not fast enough to be in there. I'd like to see Tommaso Allen in at number 10 be given an opportunity there, and if there's anybody else in the Italian system that could come in and be tried out at number 10, I think Quesada needs to have a look at that position, because it's so pivotal, as we know, for all teams to have a good number 10, and I just don't think Gabisi is the right guy. Steve Borthwick and crew, how do they analyse this game? Well, I think they'll be pretty disappointed if they're honest with themselves, and they should be. I think that there was a lot of errors in this game, and they were looking at obviously trying to play an expansive game. There was a lot of ball in hand in that first half, but they were undoing themselves by making little critical errors at silly times, particularly in the breakdown area. Some of the things that they would have enjoyed seeing, though, was George Ford being Mr. Consistency again. And how many times does he just keep ticking the points over for England and keep the scoreboard ticking over? Without him today, they would have been in trouble. But what I did like to see was how that back three of England were really working in the breakdown, and they were very, very impressive, in fact. So got to give them a lot of kudos for that. I thought Freddie Stewart at fullback was good today. He caught a couple of high balls. He injected himself in the back line on a couple of occasions, but he was just disconnected from meeting up with his outside or inside backs when they were making those breaks. And I think by having a new guy like Freeman in there, it's going to take a little bit of time for those things to gel. So maybe the first head out for these guys, they need to have a little bit more consistency in their game. I don't think England were going to lose this game, but I think Borthwick's got to look at their man management of the game. They were broken open by Italy, and when they come up against teams like Ireland and France potentially, who have the opportunity to really run at this English defence, they could be in all sorts of trouble unless they block those gaps in defence. So their defensive structure needs to be looked at and worked on and practiced before they head into their next game. Otherwise they could have some potential dangers in that. I liked what I saw in Cunningham and South when he came on. He's obviously a player of the future. He's a big lad. He got into a couple of situations where he broke the line. He's good with ball in hand. He's obviously got a good skill set, so I hope to see this guy a lot more in an English shirt, and maybe he should be getting an opportunity to get on there and start the game as well. As far as lineouts go today for England, they were pretty solid in the lineouts. They were good from a scrambling point of view at the back of the line out as well. It always ends up with England from their outside backs, outside of George Ford. That's where they start to go wrong, and there just doesn't seem to be the flow and the consistency, and we've seen so many players, haven't we, in those positions, from Tuolagi to Joe Merchant to who else have we had there, Ollie Lawrence as well, all those guys, and they just don't seem to be able to bring the kind of game to crack open like the Jesse Creels and the Rico Ioanis and those types of guys that we've got in World Rugby. England doesn't have that kind of player, and it would make such a difference to their team if they had that kind of player. So it'll be interesting to see as we go through this competition what combinations Steve Borthwick puts together in their back line, because obviously with getting the ball that they have got, which was quite good today, they just need to clean up in those areas, and I think they could go a lot better. Gonzalo Quesada has got to be happy with the performance of the Italians today. I think they were very, very good compared to their outings in the Rugby World Cup. There's no doubt about that. The scoreline doesn't lie, and they were in that game for a lot of it as well after the first half. So just that soft period, 20 minutes in the second half where they game up, he'll be wanting them to focus to make sure they bring 80 minutes of rugby next weekend. They've got a tough encounter next weekend against Ireland, and they're going to have to step up if they're going to keep the Irish out from scoring many tries. But a great performance, I thought, by Italy today, a performance that they can build on and try and do something in the Six Nations this year. England will go home next weekend to Twickenham to play Wales. That's going to be a fascinating encounter after what we saw in the Scotland-Wales game. I won't give too much away of that in this video. You'll have to watch my review of the Scotland versus Wales game today, which I can tell you was an absolute thriller from Cardiff. But that's going to be an interesting encounter at Twickenham next weekend for England. But they're going to have to be on point, because even though it's a young Welsh team, they're going to come all guns a-blazing for England at Twickenham. And if England are able to clean up some of those areas of their play today, I think they can go a lot better. So there we go. If you like my content, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and stick around, because I've got all the Six Nation review and previews coming up through the entire competition this year. And then we've got some more rugby after that. So there's going to be plenty going on here on my channel on Inside Rugby. And don't forget to participate in the community page. I throw polls up there from time to time, give you an opportunity for you to vote on all sorts of different things that are going on as well. Okay, well that's it for this video. I'm going to be back again really soon with some more content. Until then, stay safe, stay well everyone, and keep enjoying the rugby. There's some fantastic games already being played and some more to come. So until next time, I'll say adios from Mexico. Bye for now.